Members, we have a quorum, and this is the appointed time. I call to order the meeting. Time is quite tight today because we have quite a number of items on the agenda, so I've already invited the government officials in. I will not read out the names of the government officials one by one. After the administration has walked us through the paper, I will let members press the request to speak button. All right? I see that you have some views, but let's think about this later. Secretary, please. Chairman, members, good afternoon. Under the Development Bureau, we have the Planning Unit as well as the Works Department. So the Bureau covers a very wide scope of work in order to have a more focused discussion. In the paper provided for members today, it is not an overview of our work. Instead, we brief members on the key tasks of our Bureau in the Chief Executive's policy address. We understand that time is tight today, so I, together with the permanent secretaries, will focus on a number of key initiatives. I would like to first talk about land development. One of the major tasks of the Development Bureau is land development. We need sufficient land to meet our needs for housing, economic development, as well as for community facilities. Therefore, starting from this term, we have been updating the 10-year formation forecast of developable land. During the 10-year period, we will update how much developable land we have every year. I hope that you would understand that it doesn't mean we will dispose all the land we have every year. The key is that we have the spade-ready sites ready. When will we dispose the land? It really depends on the market's needs. We will adopt a flexible approach. Last year, in the 10-year formation forecast of developable land, we will, in the 10-year period, have 2,600 hectares of spade-ready sites available. 1,800 of these sites will be from the Northern Metropolis. This shows how important the Northern Metropolis is. So in the next session, we will brief members in greater detail about the Northern Metropolis project. The other spade-ready sites are made primarily from Tung Chung New Town Extension, Tseung Kwan O areas 137 and 132, Lung Ku Town reclamation, and the replanning of Tuen Mun West area. We make use of land development to promote industry development. For example, on suitable sites, we promote ecotourism. Also, we are reserving sites at Lama Quarry site as well as the Aberdeen Typhoon Shelter and the former Hong Hom Station to promote yacht tourism and yacht economy. Starting from last year, we have been inviting the market to submit expressions of interest for the projects I mentioned just now. Also, we are removing restrictions and barriers so that more commercial buildings can be converted into hostels for post-secondary students, so that we can build ourselves into an international hub for post-secondary education. So these are all about land development. Another highlight is urban renewal and building safety. On urban renewal, our stance is that we cannot simply rely on the Urban Renewal Authority. We have to leverage market forces. That's why in last year's policy address, we proposed a number of initiatives, and so far the feedback we've got from the market is quite positive. Later on, the Permanent Secretary will brief you in greater detail through a PowerPoint presentation. Last year, we proposed a number of legislative amendments concerning the Buildings Ordinance. They are to regulate building maintenance as well as unauthorized building structures. Due to the Taipo fire incident, we have already stated that we will further review the buildings ordinance. We will amend the ordinance, and through enhancing regulation over professionals as well as contractors, we will ensure building maintenance safety. In a recent LegCo debate, we have already talked about this, so I'm not going to repeat the details here. I hope members would understand that these initiatives have just been proposed recently. We are exploring the details now, and we will reveal the details later this year. I'm afraid I don't have the details ready today. Now, moving on to construction costs. Well, a lot of the projects I mentioned just now involve infrastructure development as well as large-scale construction work. So we are looking into how to contain project costs, streamline approval process, and enhancing the use of innovative technology. Now I will defer to the two permanent secretaries to brief members about these in greater detail. Thank you, Secretary. This is the 10-year forecast that the Secretary mentioned just now. This has been made public. This is just to tell you that in the 10-year period, we will have 2,600 hectares of spade-ready sites. And some of these sites will be used for public facilities and other sites for other purposes. As mentioned, these sites will come from a number of sources. To speed up land creation, we must remove barriers and lift restrictions. To tie in with the announcement in the policy address, we have published a circular, and it touches on the key processes. In relation to development, we have internal deadlines, and we are going to enhance internal monitoring. We also have a 3-tier structure to ensure timely high-level intervention. Apart from the above, we are also introducing some flexible land grant measures, and all these measures apply to the entire territory in Hong Kong. Currently, the fixed term tenancy is 7 years. We hope to extend the tenancies to 21 years, during which tenants may renew the tenancy twice. We hope to help industry operators such as shipping companies with a longer tenancy term. They will be able to make longer term planning as well as investment. Now, on the Pay for What You Build pilot scheme, as you know, developers have to apply for lease modification in order to change the use of a plot of land. We hope to maximize the gross floor area, and we make use of the GFA to calculate the land premium payable by developers. We have heard the market's view, and they would like a more flexible approach. That's why we launched the Pay for What You Build pilot scheme. Under the scheme, developers are allowed to take forward the development project in phases. If 60% of the GFA is used for the first phase of development, then based on the construction progress, the developer can pay the premium needed. This would allow a certain level of flexibility for developers to reserve capital for investment. As mentioned by the Secretary just now, another major task of the Development Bureau is to facilitate the supply of student hostels. We have the hostels in the city scheme. About a week ago, we put up 3 plots of land, one in Kai Tak, one in Shilek Yun Sha Tin, and another plot of land in Tong Chong. We hope to collect feedback from the market to see if they would like to purchase the land, and if they are interested in turning the commercial sites into student hostels for post-secondary education institutions. If feedback is positive, we plan to roll out the first plot of land in 2026-27. On developing yacht economy, the Secretary has already touched on this. I'm not going to go in great detail. But to supplement, we are going to develop yacht berthing facilities in the Aberdeen Typhoon Shelter. And in order to do so, we have to expand the Typhoon Shelter. And this is part of the public works projects that have to be carried out. We will consult the PWSC after we have consulted this panel. The next highlight is to redevelop old districts, and according to the policy address last year, we plan to beautify Lan Kwai Fong. For the first phase, we would roll out minor works, for example, road resurfacing to beautify the landscape. If you have been to Lan Kwai Fong, you would know that some of the facilities will have to be refurbished, and these are minor works, so they will commence in the first half of this year. For the next phase, we will expand the scope of works. We hope to work with the local merchants and shop operators to see if we could collaborate on the beautification works. On urban renewal, as said by the Secretary, this is one of the major initiatives announced in last year's policy address. I will go into greater detail here. The Development Bureau as well as the URA are reviewing the compensation arrangement. That is the 7-year rule that we have all heard of. We will roll out a new flat-for-flat scheme. That means if in future a flat of a minority worker is acquired by the URA, they could either get cash or a replacement unit managed by the URA. Last year, we passed some plots of land to the URA, including ones in Area 137 in Tseung Kwan O. Last year, we proposed reserving some new sites to the URA from the new development areas. For the URA to take forward the new flat-for-flat scheme, the aim is that we want to make use of land resources in the new development areas to solve problems we encounter in redeveloping old districts. As mentioned, this is a huge topic and we cannot simply rely on the effort of the URA. We want to leverage market forces in the private sector so that we can take forward as early as possible the redevelopment projects in old districts. Therefore, we proposed relaxing the arrangements for transfer of plot ratio. Currently, in Yau Ma Tei and Mong Kok, we allow transfer of plot ratio within the same district. That means if a private developer has a construction site in a certain district and after demolishing the building, if they do not want to have the same plot ratio in the same site, they could choose to transfer the plot ratio to another construction site that belongs to that same developer. As mentioned, we want greater flexibility. That's why we allow transfer of plot ratio across districts now. That means if the private developer chooses not to build another building in the same construction site, they could choose to transfer plot ratio not just within the same district, but to other districts, for example, in the northern metropolis even. Another tactic that we have come up with is that for some old buildings that are demolished according to developers, they cannot enjoy greater plot ratio from these redevelopment projects. So developers would want more incentives. Therefore, in the 7 designated districts where redevelopment project is pressing, if they demolish the buildings or take part in these redevelopment projects, we will give them 20% of the plot ratio. They could use the plot ratio in the same site. They could also transfer the plot ratio to the northern metropolis or other districts. They could even use the plot ratio gained to offset the premium payable for bidding land or for lease modification.
另外就係講。
Well, speaking of old buildings, there are over 1,000 old industrial buildings in Hong Kong. In the past, through different reviews and through changes in rezoning, then we would try to release industrial land in urban areas. And last year we started a new round of assessment, and through this we hope to revitalize industrial land to look into what can be done in the future and what kind of measures we can bring forward. I'd also like to touch on the follow-up work in light of the Tai Po Wong Fuk Court fire incident. We will review our buildings ordinance to strengthen the regulation of large renovation works. And we are also discussing with the department on how we can strengthen support for owners corporations in working with the URA to formulate measures to strengthen URA's roles and functions, such as introducing a more stringent pre-qualified list for consultants and contractors, and to look into having better tendering and tender assessment for owners. We are also looking with the buildings department because the BD is also looking into setting statutory requirements in temporary measures such as erection of scaffoldings, as well as protective measures. I'll now like to hand over the floor to Mr. Lau. Thank you. I'll now like to touch on the construction industry. Well, the construction industry is one of the major pillars in Hong Kong, and what we do has to align with the National 15th Five-Year Plan, which calls for optimization, enhancing our competitiveness. We also want to act as a stronger connector between the mainland and the rest of the world, to act as a super connector and super value adder. We would also actively promote infrastructure investment to drive economic growth, to open up job opportunities. We estimate that each year there would be around 120 billion in annual capital works expenditure. We will also earmark an additional 30 billion to further boost expenditure on works projects. Well, not only do we have to speed up and enhance efficiency in our industry, we also need to overcome current obstacles and challenges, such as enhancing the upskilling of construction workers and prioritizing local workers for employment to meet the long-term development needs of our industry. In our measures that we will roll out, of course, we need to look into manpower and the use of technology. In terms of manpower needs, we have been taking a multi-pronged approach to address the needs. In the short term, we have been enhancing training and support measures for construction workers. When there needs to be adjustment in the industry, we would help our workers to upgrade their skills. Some workers have been affected due to the suspension of large works, and therefore we have increased the quota for training. Not only is this training provided free, they would also receive a subsidy from completing the training. We're also working with the unions and the CIC to match up job opportunities with trained workers. There is also an increase in quota in the learning of new technology, such as for MIC and also for construction and some even for BIM. We support the CIC to continue to enhance local training from 2022 to 2027. The quota has been increased from an annual 6,000 to 12,000. We are working with the CIC to roll out a pilot scheme to provide on-the-job training subsidy for part-time construction-related degree programs. Currently, 1,200 workers have benefited from this program. We also support universities and VTC to increase program and quotas for construction-related courses. So new content such as BIM, MIC, digital construction, etc. have been included in the contents. In 2023, the government expanded the talent list and added in the technical professional list. And in June of last year, with the technical professional list and also a list for registered lift maintenance workers, we continue to promote the labor importation scheme to meet the demands in the construction sector. I have to emphasize that we review and vet each application stringently, and when there is a large shortage, would we allow the adoption of the labor importation scheme. Other than training, we must also make use of innovation and technology and to attract young people to join the industry. We have set up in 2007 the setting up of the Construction Innovation and Technology Fund, CITF. As of last year, the fund has approved a total commitment of about 2.2 billion, and about 60% enterprises are SMEs. We have also supported many of such enterprises to make use of the technology. The fund will provide funding for applications of advanced technologies such as robotics, AI, and enhance support for SMEs to use our information and technology. The government has always been concerned with construction costs in Hong Kong. We try our best to reduce construction costs and to control such costs. In terms of strengthening project governance, we will assist the relevant bureau and departments in establishing an ownership mindset, which means that we would come up with many different alternatives to look into the different deadlines to try to come up with the best and most cost-effective plan. we are continuing our review on our construction standards and requirements. We have already started our work in the review of some standards such as on concrete and also on the construction materials used in site formation. And in September of last year, we have also launched new standards to come up with a central database so that we can use this on our work sites. And in the first half of this year, we will try to conduct central procurement, including steel reinforcement and MIC modules. The Development Bureau has launched the Project Cost Management Platform. By using our current data, we can share this data amongst the different bureau and department. We would also apply AI and construction robots in our industry to enhance our efficiency and performance. Well, water supply is very important to us. Ever since 1965, Dongjiang Water has been supplied to Hong Kong, and it has exemplified the nation's long-standing and selfless support and care for Hong Kong. The year 2025 marks the 60th anniversary of the Dongjiang water supply to Hong Kong, and the government organized a series of events. And it has attracted over 4 million participants and viewers for these related events. The government will continue to promote the patriotic message of our blessed origin through regular public and school education campaigns. And every year there would be similar exhibitions rolled out so that students can understand and appreciate the nation's care for Hong Kong. We also need to enhance cities' resilience against extreme weather. And the government has published the assessment report on climate change, and we have made updates to align Hong Kong standards with international practices so that we can enhance our resilience against flood risk from sea level rise, extreme rainfalls, and storm surges. Currently, among 15 drainage improvement projects are underway, in which one was completed, and 17 out of 26 coastal enhancement works are completed. We estimate that the remaining works will be completed by 2030 and 2027. We have also looked at flood resilience and risk-based approach into different designs to formulate medium-term and long-term strategies. And we would also actively deploy innovative technologies. Starting from this year, we would use automated slope inspections to enhance landslide risk assessment and alert dissemination. A smart flood forecasting and early warning system is also being developed to rapidly simulate potential flooding scenarios to help us target preventive measures and emergency responses. We must use innovation to try to enhance site safety. In 2023, we have started requiring all public works contracts with contract sum exceeding 30 million to adopt 4S, which is a smart site safety system. Since adopting this system, we have seen a very positive result at our work sites. We have also invested through our CITF to subsidize private development projects to adopt the 4S. We are also looking into a 4S labeling scheme. Now in Hong Kong, there are over 680 worksites in Hong Kong being given the 4S label. And we would also try to look into the work over for large sites. We require actually the contractors to use the 4S system.
On the other hand, the Development Bureau has been promoting the integration of the construction industry in Hong Kong into the national development. For example, professional title is a unique professional qualification evaluation system in the mainland. It is a key benchmark for assessing the technical competency and qualification levels of professionals, as well as a basis for construction enterprises in the mainland to recruit and promote talent. In the past, professionals from Hong Kong found it very hard to apply for this title. In 2023, with the concerted efforts of the Hong Kong government as well as the Guangdong government, we have come up with an evaluation system. 578 Hong Kong professionals have obtained mainland professional title qualifications now. We will continue to work closely with the relevant mainland authorities to take forward the relevant work so that this professional title evaluation mechanism can be made a regular mechanism. We also strive to include, for example, planning and landscape architecture into this mechanism. In order to upskill the workers in the GBA, we have worked with the Macau SAR to formulate GBA technical skill standards. We've also rolled out the one exam multiple certification arrangement. In March and June last year, we promulgated the GBA standards for 2 pilot trades of skilled construction workers and the first pilot position for construction technicians, respectively. Guangdong, Hong Kong, and Macau will monitor the situation and in an orderly manner extend the above arrangement to other construction trades and positions. It is expected that within this year, we will promulgate the GBA standards for 2 new trades of skilled worker and 1 new technician position. Chairman, apart from the above items, the Works Department also is responsible for heritage conservation as well as tree management. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go into the detail of these 2 areas of work. The relevant details are set out in the paper. Thank you, Secretary, as well as the 2 permanent secretaries for the briefing. Members who'd like to raise questions, you may press the request to speak button now. I'd like to remind members that if you have any questions concerning the Northern Metropolis, please remember that at 4:30 p.m., that is in the session right after this one, there will be a discussion on the development of the Northern Metropolis. And representatives from the Northern Metropolis office as well as the relevant bureau will be here to address members' questions. Now, 13 members have asked to speak. To manage time, I will give each member 3 minutes, including questions and answers. Please watch the time. I'll read out the lineup. Mr. Lam Chun Sing, Mr. Mark Chong, Mr. Vincent Chang, Ms. Maggie Chen, Mr. Kenneth Fok, Ms. Elaine Chick, Mr. Michael Lee, Mr. Tem Chun Kwok, Ms. Kwok Fu Yong, Ms. Michelle Tang, Ms. Christine Fong, Mr. Aaron Bok, and Mr. Lau Ka Kung. Mr. Lam Chun Sing, please. Thank you, Chairman. I understand that the government in recent years has increased the number of public works, and the amount reserved for public works now stands at $120 billion. That is an additional $30 billion compared to the past. We see that the construction industry is not doing quite well, and the jobless rate for this industry is about 80% for workers that were responsible for building maintenance. They did not know when they will get their job back. And we also don't see an increase in terms of the number of works in the private sector. The government is expecting an improvement in its fiscal position because it's going to issue bonds for its large-scale infrastructure projects. Will the government reprioritize its works so as to benefit the construction industry as well as other trades? Second question. There was mention about the construction costs in the briefing just now. A lot of the projects are very costly for us members. We keep asking whether it is possible to lower construction costs, and the government said it was impossible to do so. However, there were examples that construction costs could be lowered. For example, for the investigation works for the Northern Metropolis Highway project, it was originally $1.1 billion, but because of the use of technology, the cost could be lowered by 40% to $700 million. Also, for the Hong Kong-Shenzhen Western Rail Link project, the government adopted different means to lower the cost. So can these methods be applied to different projects so that the cost of public works could be lowered? Secretary, 2 questions. First, on the amount of private works, we also see that there is a drop in terms of the number. For the private sector, the amount of private works account for 40% of the total works in Hong Kong. If you expect the government to roll out more public works in order to offset the impact of the drop of the number of private works, it would affect the government's fiscal position. Well, I hope members see that we have rolled out a number of initiatives to relax restrictions. Why do we do so? Because we want to facilitate the development in Hong Kong. At the same time, we want the private sector to revive their works as well as to take part in redevelopment projects. For example, the hostels in city scheme, it is one incentive for the private sector to convert commercial buildings into student hostels. And this scheme has been well received, and this is a scheme that benefits the private sector. As to whether we would apply the good practices in the past to future works projects, well, we will. There is a project management office. If we identify any good practices in certain public works, we'll definitely replicate it in other projects. Next, Mr. Mark Chong. I want to bring up one thing. We only received this paper from the government around 7 p.m. last night. I hope the government can submit the papers earlier next time. Now, I'd like to talk about trees. There was a tree on a pedestrian walkway that's 3 meters wide. It is very healthy and it keeps growing. And the highways department had to keep changing the floor tiles because of the growth of the tree. For trees that grow very healthily but occupies part of the pedestrian walkway, it is quite inconvenient for those on wheelchairs as well as for elderly people. There were incidents in which elderly people fell because of trees. How will you manage trees to ensure that trees will not take up the spaces on public pedestrian walkways? For some of the trees with big roots, they could break the ground, so I hope there is a way to better manage these trees. My second point is not mentioned in this government paper. I would like to talk about water pipes. Last May in Tuen Mun, there was a major water pipe burst incident, and Tuen Mun Road was congested because of this. In order to address the problem at root, we have to lower the water pressure. Currently, the water pressure in Hong Kong is double that of Singapore. In Shenzhen, they make use of smart water meters. They make use of big data to see when they have to adjust the water pressure in different households. I know that for buildings that are built after 2018, you require the developers to install water meters. But for buildings before 2018, there wasn't such a scheme. Well, could you leave some time for the administration to address your questions? I want to know the relevant progress. I wonder if there's a timetable for that. Secretary, my apology. I should have apologized to members at the beginning that we only managed to submit the papers last night. I ask for members' understanding because there were some urgent matters that the Development Bureau had to deal with recently. That's why we submitted the paper late. I will first talk about tree management, and I will defer to the Permanent Secretary on the question about water pipes. On what kind of trees should be planted? There is a set of guidelines for trees that were planted early. Because of time and because of other changes, some trees might not be suitable for certain districts. That's why we conducted a study 1 or 2 years ago. So this year we will release the findings as well as the relevant recommendations to deal with trees that have to do with the situation Mr. Mark Chong mentioned. Permanent Secretary, on water pipe burst, we actually gave a report on this last year. Water pipes in Hong Kong are all very long, and some of them are getting old. For some of the water pipes, the materials used make them easy to break. So we will speed up our work on replacing water pipes. Turning to smart water meter, we are looking at the cost of installing smart water meters. And it is true that the water pressure in Hong Kong is higher than that in other places. We have talked to the relevant mainland authorities and learned from their practices. They have proposed some ideas to us, and we will try out the methods they proposed. Next, Mr. Vincent Chang. The Development Bureau has talked about the new measures for urban renewal. I hope it will speed up the work. After the announcement of the flower market project, it's been some time, and I hope that there could be more options for the owners affected there. Now I'd like to focus on smart tender as well as the buildings ordinance. I understand that the government is going to amend the relevant ordinance to offer better protection to owners. However, for some owners in old buildings, they have to wait for a long time for the maintenance to be carried out. I raised a written question to the buildings department yesterday. According to statistics, by the end of 2025, about 13.2% of the buildings have complied with the building maintenance order. The percentage is quite low. If we keep up with this progress, well, I actually suspect that starting from 2020, only half of the buildings that received the maintenance order completed the maintenance works. How would you help streamline the procedures to make it easier for owners' corporations to carry out building maintenance works? Thank you.
Secretary, Chairman, well, if you're to complete the maintenance by a deadline, then we must need to be able to achieve many different areas. we must have good consultants, good contractors, and the URA must also provide advice and consultancy when needed. The owners corporation must also operate well. As Secretary Mack said, there must also be improvement made. There is often a delay in maintenance work because owners could not come to a consensus. With an improvement in the OC, I'm sure improvement can be made. Our two bureaus will launch new measures together in the latter half of the year. Well, I agree with what you say, but even for type 2, only 40% completion only. It takes a long time. I hope that the buildings department can also try to speed up their work. Well, I can actually add on to that. That actually is related to the amendment of the buildings ordinance. We want to try to smooth out some of the regulations when it's a very small scale work. We will try to relax some of the regulations because we want a more focus to be put on the larger scale works. Thank you. Ms. Maggie Chan. Thank you, Chairman. I would like to ask about page 7 of the PowerPoint on beautifying Lan Kwai Fong, because here you say that in the first phase of work it's mainly on beautifying the area, such as repaving the carriageway or dressing up the refuse collection point. Would you also consider beautifying the public toilets or also renovating the public toilets? Because public toilets are very important to the city, to our streetscape, and also important to the attraction of tourists. How can we control our costs and also come up with a better ratio for men and women's toilets? A second question is on cost reduction. Have you considered trying further breaking down works so that small and medium-sized contractors can also tender for these works and the cost could be more competitive? Two questions, Secretary. Let me take the first question and then I would ask Mr. Lau to answer the second question. Well, Ms. Chan emphasized on the renovation of public toilets. Let me tell you about our role. Well, renovation of public toilets are actually handled by the relevant department, and that should go under the FEHD. But actually, it's an opportunity for me to talk about why we want to beautify Lan Kwai Fong streetscape here. For certain areas, when we want to beautify an area, it involves many different departments, such as a highways department, such as FEHD. Road signs also go under another department. Well, since Lan Kwai Fong is so unique, the Development Bureau is stepping up to take up the role as the coordinator. If we are successful in this experience, then we could also try for other Mr. Lau, on well, we believe that for the tender and the cost, these are two areas that we really need to strike a balance. So we would take into consideration the scale and the weighting. We have seen that there are different kinds of works, and we want to break down into smaller works so that other contractors can participate as well. 2 years ago, we rolled out a new measure. When a large contractor is partnering up with a smaller contractor, we would actually award them more points in their tender. This would provide more job opportunities for smaller contractors. And I see that in the last 2 years, 80% of the works have been joined by both large and small contractors. Thank you. Well, due to time constraint, after Mr. Kenneth Fok speaks, I'm going to draw a line because we really do not have time to take more questions. Mr. Kenneth Fok, please. Thank you. I would like to ask about the partnership scheme in urban renewal and also in heritage. Well, we see that some of the past projects have actually been suspended, such as the High Court in Fanling and some of the media libraries, etc. Well, I know that this program has been relaxed twice, but can we actually try to come up with a better way to revitalize these buildings and to conserve history? Well, remember that for the ex-quarry site, in September of last year, I think there has been an invitation of tender, but I don't know whether there are many tenders because my sector is interested in using it, but we don't know how the sports industry can work with the government. And lastly, a question on the yacht economy. That is actually a very good plan, but I'm concerned with the water near Kwun Tong. The secretary said that there will be 3 areas in which berths could be set up, but I'm worried about the Kwun Tong area. I know, of course, that different stakeholders would have different views, but if we could actually have a gradual process in which some of the stakeholders in Kwun Tong could be moved out, and then Kwun Tong could actually contribute more to the yacht economy. That would perhaps be much better. Secretary, 3 questions. Thank you. On the revitalization of history partnership scheme, we can't really require organizations to be successful all the time. We want these buildings to be put to good use, but sometimes it might be because we do not have the business acumen to operate. Therefore, we allow organizations to partner up with a business organization. Going forward, we will try to see how we can improve this. And then for the ex-quarry site, I would perhaps need to follow this up with the relevant bureau. it involves green sites. For the Kwun Tong typhoon shelter area, how can we better manage the area or have it rezoned? Then we would need to look at it from another perspective, but we would of course bring back your views to the relevant departments. Ms. Elaine Chick. Thank you. Well, to promote tourism, Hong Kong needs to have more unique characteristics to attract tourists. Therefore, I'm in full support of beautifying Lan Kwai Fong. Hong Kong people really love going to Japan, and Japan is really avant-garde in that it actually beautifies the areas such as beautifying manholes, and actually they would draw anime on it with such kind of intellectual property. So could you actually consider using MacDowell or La Boo and try to use, or maybe use a local IP to beautify manholes, and then tourists would then be very interested in looking for these beautiful manholes while they are here in Hong Kong. Many people are worried about how the government will handle situations under extreme weather. We have seen such works being carried out in Taiwan, and recently the government has set up measures to try to prevent floods in 6 areas. How can you actually take this further in other areas so that these areas would not be inundated by floods when extreme weather hits? I'd also like to ask about old pipes and the prevention of pipe bursting. I know that the government has been trying to control pipe bursts. Could you actually try to step this up in North Point and also roll this out in different areas? 3 questions. Well, I think that actually the third one is a view and not a question, so I will take note of that. For manholes or manhole covers, the Drainage Services Department has been launching competitions for manhole cover designs. You have specifically given us ideas, and I would of course bring these ideas back to the DSD. In urban areas, we really can build facilities to try to prevent floods, but then in new development areas, especially in the northern metropolis, we are going to consider implementing it into our design. Mr. Lee Chun-Kung, the government has been trying its best to work in work safety and also on beautifying the areas. If we're revitalizing old areas or old buildings, that would actually give rise to a new set of challenges, such as how to handle old pipes or pipe burst. So on what basis or what criteria would you look at before you would agree with urban renewal? We now see an aging population. Can we actually relax some of the use of old buildings to make it into residences for old people? And for professional titles, is it actually a sort of recognition of a profession between the two sides? Or do you mean that in future for public and private works, mainland professionals could also come over to Hong Kong to work in certain areas so that costs could be controlled? Thank you.
Secretary, 3 questions. For the third question, I'll ask Mr. Lau to respond. On the first question, I believe what the member was saying, that we always encourage developers to revitalize industrial buildings, but then we at the same time impose requirements. For example, we ask them to provide parking spaces as well as to meet the standards in terms of their fire safety system. Well, will that really help us revitalize industrial buildings? Therefore, in the new round of review, we will review the existing industrial building revitalization scheme to see if the scheme is effective. Second, about student hostels. Well, since commercial building conversion is so popular, well, can we turn commercial buildings into elderly care homes? Well, we have to consider that elderly care homes have its height restriction to meet fire safety standards. I'm afraid that we may not be able to have elderly care homes in commercial buildings, but we will look into this. Mr. Lau, professional title system is not a mutual recognition system for qualifications. It is an evaluation mechanism unique in the mainland. But then this mechanism is now open to people in Hong Kong, so Hong Kong professionals now can apply for professional titles in the mainland. This is very helpful for Hong Kong professionals who would like to find a job in the mainland or in the GBA. And this is a great facilitation measure for them. That's why we went ahead with this initiative. Also, for the engineering sector, a lot of times if you want to be in the management position, you have to obtain the professional title in order to work as a manager. So in the future, I hope that we can make use of the professionals in Hong Kong who have obtained the qualification to help us take forward development of the sector. Next, Mr. Tam Chun Kwok. I see that the government is encouraging works projects, and there is a demand for projects in the construction industry. The government has rolled out short-term measures to support construction workers and help upskill them. In the medium to long run, the government has increased the training quotas for construction workers. There are also training programs that are subsidized for construction workers. With these training programs and subsidies, how many more construction workers will that add to our construction industry to help alleviate the manpower shortage in Hong Kong, as well as to support the development of the construction industry in Hong Kong? Secretary, well, this is a very timely question. Once every few years, we work with the Construction Industry Council to estimate the number of construction works in the coming years. We also make an estimate of the manpower we need. We analyze the manpower demand for different construction trades. Well, the new round of projection will be out soon, so I believe the Construction Industry Council will release the findings soon. Now, how can we ensure that there is enough manpower supply? Importing labor is one way. Usually, we cannot, however, rely on imported labor. As for the shortfall, we talk to training institutions and ask them whether they will help train up certain number of workers in the coming few years. And depending on their reply, we offer subsidies and financial support to them. So please be patient. I believe that we will announce the relevant projection outcomes in the coming few months. Next, Ms. Kwok Foo-yong. I have the following two areas of concern. First, on using a new mindset to promote urban renewal. Well, my view is that transfer of plot ratio can help lower the density of old districts, but land resumption or flat acquisition would have an impact on minority owners. For private developers, if they take part in redevelopment projects, they can have an additional amount of plot ratio. For Tsuen Wan and Sham Shui Po, well, is there a timetable for the urban renewal projects there? Second, how can the government ensure that for new construction sites or new development areas, the transportation system as well as the public facilities can afford the increase of population brought by the transfer of plot ratio across districts? We do not want to see the same situation where we saw in the old districts where there weren't enough public or community facilities. Second, in terms of management of buildings, last June, the government rolled out the joint management model in Tsuen Wan and Yaochun Mon district. That is to ensure that there is property management company for 3 new buildings. Also, the government is rolling out a pre-qualified list for building maintenance projects under the Smart Tender scheme. I want to know if the government encountered any challenges under the joint management model, and how will you, based on the feedback collected, refine the scheme? Also, if the scheme goes smoothly, will you make use of the rehabilitation subsidy under the URA? That is to offer more financial support and protection to minority owners that benefit from the joint management model. Also, how can you prevent unscrupulous companies from changing the names of the companies to get back onto the list of pre-qualified contractors? Thank you. Secretary, I believe there are in total 4 questions. Well, first of all, on the 20% of plot ratio, do developers automatically get the 20% of plot ratio? I'll defer to my colleagues to respond to this question. On the enhanced version of the Smart Tender scheme, we're still in talks with the URA about this, so I'm afraid I do not have the relevant details to share with members today. Say if a company changes its name and sets up another company, will we allow that company to get back onto the pre-qualified list in case it was removed from the list earlier? Well, we will definitely not allow such a situation to happen, because we have to look at the background of the newly registered company as well as the track record of the person in charge. Now, on the point about joint management model, it is under the purview of the HYAB, which helps come up with a comprehensive plan. So I'm afraid I do not have the detailed information at hand. Ms. Doris Ho, just now the member asked some questions about the urban renewal master plan in Tsuen Wan and Sham Shui Po. Towards the end of last year, the URA submitted its report to the government, and the Development Bureau, together with other bureaus, are looking into this. This master plan is just a recommendation of the URA, and the relevant bureaus haven't yet looked into this in detail. We have to see what suggestions other bureaus have and where appropriate, we will make public the master plan proposed by the URA. The other question concerns cross-district plot ratio transfer. Well, we really encourage developers to transfer the plot ratio to other districts or to new districts. This is because new development areas must have room to absorb new development projects. Also, cross-district plot ratio usually involves planning, permission application, and the town planning board in this situation can help be the safe gatekeeper and make sure that after the transfer of plot ratio, the target district will be able to absorb the growth of population. Next, Ms. Michelle Tang. I support the initiative of the government to relax restrictions and streamline approval processes. However, I do hope that the government will communicate more frequently with the relevant practitioners and the relevant sectors. Extending the fixed-term tenancy is supposed to be a more flexible approach for operators, but some members of the public are not very clear about this initiative. I don't want this to give people the impression that the government is giving preferential treatment to business operators. Now, turning to the hostels in the city scheme, I support this scheme because we want to attract high-end talent, and when they come to Hong Kong, they need accommodation. Again, some members of the public may not understand the rationale of this initiative because a lot of people in Hong Kong, they live in small apartments. How come the government keeps encouraging developers to build student accommodation? I hope the government can come up with interesting ways such as short stories and short videos to explain its initiatives. It may even ask online celebrities to help. Now, turning to the buildings ordinance. A lot of buildings have their deeds of mutual covenant, and the devils are in the details, so I hope the government would help review these deeds in order for the new arrangement to work. Secretary. It is the Lands Department's responsibility to come up with a blueprint of these deeds of mutual covenant, but it is the HYAB's responsibility to improve the deeds, so I will reflect your comments to the HYAB. Second, about removing restrictions. If I understand the member correctly, we must explain in greater detail to the public why we're removing the relevant restrictions. Indeed, we have recently issued a circular, and we have been explaining to the industry and the relevant trades about the circular. We have launched a new mechanism that involve multiple layers as well as an escalation mechanism, and we therefore have to let the relevant industries understand when this mechanism will be triggered, and we'll also at the same time use interesting ways to explain to the public about our policies. Next, Ms. Christine Fong. I am concerned about the land creation project in Area 137 in Tseung Kwan O. I hope the government will adopt an infrastructure-led approach in order to provide enough transportation facilities as well as relevant community facilities for local residents. While local residents in Tseung Kwan O are concerned whether these facilities can benefit them, they want public markets as well as sports ground. Can these facilities be built closer to the existing housing estates in Tseung Kwan O, such as the Lohas Park? We don't want to see a lack of, for example, public markets for a population of 100,000 people. So I hope the Development Bureau will take into consideration when it takes forward the development project in Area 137. Second, in terms of dealing with land in a more flexible way, well, there are some old industrial buildings on Hong Kong Island that could perhaps be converted into student hostels. If the Hong Kong Island South Line could be made a circular line, it could perhaps benefit the overall planning development. Thirdly, I'd like to talk about village houses. The Development Bureau encourages people to turn village houses into homestay lodgings as well as small restaurants to promote urban-rural integration. I know that some people in the rural area would like to turn land in greenbelt zones into homestay lodgings. This is to help boost local economy. Indeed, recently there are 3 plots of land in the greenbelt sites in Tseung Kwan O that were turned into public housing estates. I hope the government can be more flexible in this regard. Secretary.
We have discussed with councillors on the Tseung Kwan O Area 137, and we have reserved different sites for housing and some for community facilities. We would continue to discuss with the district on when we would roll out these facilities. To actually have industrial buildings turned into student hostels would be difficult at the moment. There is the Tseung Kwan O line. Can it be extended to the island line? Someone has raised this previously, but then at the moment it seems that it is challenging to do that. How can we make use of greenbelt areas for guest houses? We are open to new ideas. Well, we should discuss this more informally, and then after serious discussion submit the applications, because that would be much easier for us to handle. Thank you. Mr. Aaron Book. Thank you, Secretary. The portfolio is really broad. I know that there's not much time for me, but then I hope that we will actually increase manpower under the Development Bureau, because there is a lot of work to be done. There is not enough work in the construction industry because there is a large development in the private sector. We really want to see the development of the northern metropolis as soon as possible, and to roll out new works in the area. There is some infrastructure in Hong Kong that is already quite of age, so investment should be put in for a 5-year program. I hope that more resources could be put in the different departments in the year 2026 to 27 to enhance large maintenance works, because we talk about large works here and not only routine maintenance. The Development Bureau has been doing well in streamlining control and relaxing the rules, but you act as a facilitator. I hope that you could further streamline a process, that there should only be 2 vettings maximum. I think that could really be beneficial to development. For labor importation scheme. At the moment, it is only project-based. In future, perhaps you could consider having it company-based. I agree with the positive results of multiple recognition under one certification. Could workers on the mainland come over to Hong Kong to take this exam while still working so that they could achieve the recognition as soon as possible? Mr. Chong mentioned water leakage at the moment. Would you launch a smart water meter system to try to reduce the wastage of water through leakage? Well, there are 6 points here. Well, some of them are views. Perhaps you could just take in the views and answer the questions only. Chairman, we are open to the idea of launching smaller works and not only large-scale works. So we would be working on 120 billion worth of works every year. We would soon see the financial budget, and you will be able to see where money will be invested in. The Buildings Authority recently have already announced that they're using the standard of vetting only twice. We allow applicants for the labor importation scheme that workers could work in multiple work sites, but of course this must be put in the application. For smart water meter system and the one examination multiple recognition scheme, we have jotted down your views. Thank you. Mr. Lau Ka Keung. The paper said that there would be an enhancement of smart tender. I'm happy to see that AI would be adopted and that big data would be used to assess the background of the applicants. So other than involving the police, could you also add in ICAC and also the Hong Kong Monetary Authority so that suspicious behavior could be identified at an early stage, and AI can also analyze the data and to come up with an estimated budget on the cost so that overseas rights could be protected. I hear often from university students, both local and from the mainland, that it is difficult to locate suitable accommodation and affordable accommodation. We cannot solely rely on the government to provide adequate student hostels. Could we actually consider private-public partnership to provide a larger number of student hostels so that Hong Kong could really become an international hub for study? Well, yes, of course, the information would not only be sent to the police, and ICAC would be sent to all relevant departments. Would we adopt AI as a reference to analyze the tenders? Individual departments have been adopting that already. We hope to strengthen that in the future. The government provides resources a few years back for our 8 universities to provide a student hostel, but as there is an inadequacy, we're now inviting the private sector to participate as well. Mr. Stanley Ng. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to the administration for sharing with us your work update. I do have a few questions I'd like to raise here in relation to building maintenance. The government is stepping up management and regulation of building maintenance, which I welcome. Would you consider speeding up the process as there are many old buildings needing maintenance? Over tens of thousands of buildings. There is not enough resources to provide funding for all the maintenance works. Would you actually consider open up or relax the funding for the new round of Operation Building Bright? Would you strengthen subsidies on this? Another question is on the import of labor. Many problems have arose from the scheme in the construction industry. In the initial stage, imported workers must come in by batches and stay together. You really must resolve the issue of management. Otherwise, it might just give rise to new problems in the society. I'm also very concerned with land reserve. In recent years, the government has been trying to provide more land, such as developing the Northern Metropolis area. I hope that the government will announce land reserve every year, and the number of sites there is on the reserve and the plans for that going forward. Thank you. I'm sorry I used up all my time. Secretary, please be brief. How can we speed up maintenance works at old buildings? We have already come up with a direction which has not yet been rolled out. Through Operation Bright, we are trying to provide subsidies to buildings maintenance. 80% of the works have been completed. Recently, we have heard views that we are running out of money for Operation Building Bright, but we do need to continue with maintenance, so we need to come up with different solutions. For the labor importation scheme, we have added in new criteria recently. they must sign a declaration before coming into Hong Kong, and that has already been adopted in the construction sector. We always say that we can't really identify land reserve. Even if we come up with spade-ready sites, it doesn't mean that it would become land reserve. We need around 6,000 hectares of new land by 2030. But our goal is to achieve 7,000 hectares by the year 2048. Well, this exceeds what we really need, but we wouldn't tell you which site would be included as land reserve. We need to look into the dynamic use of land. We can't really say what would or how the land would be used. Thank you.
Well, we have overrun, so I'm going to extend the session by 10 minutes. I hope the 3 members who are going to speak will watch the time. Mr. Kenneth Lau. Thank you, Chair. Promoting yacht economy involves various areas. For example, we have to expand the typhoon shelter. We also need streamlined visa approval procedure, and this will involve different policy bureaus such as the Security Bureau and other bureaus. Will there be a coordination mechanism? Also, for Shuttlecock Pier and Sai Kung Pier, will you convert them into a marina so that people can go scuba diving as well as sailing there? There could also be retail and catering facilities to attract high-spending tourists. This would benefit tourism-related trades in Hong Kong. Thank you. Secretary, will there be cross-departmental coordination effort? I believe there will be. At this stage, we are collecting feedback from the market, from the land development perspectives. When we are to actually roll out the hardware, that is when the yachts come to Hong Kong, can there be streamlined immigration procedures for these incoming yachts? Well, we will need supporting measures in this regard. I believe we will then have a coordination mechanism in place, so please rest assured. Second, is Shuttlecock an appropriate destination for us to promote or develop yacht tourism? I'm afraid it has its own limits. That's because in the Shuttlecock area, including the water body there, it is a site of ecological interest. So I believe there is restriction if we want to promote yacht tourism there. We are open to further discussion, but I'd just like to let members know that there are limits to developing yacht tourism in Shuttlecock. Yes, this is a very good example because the Security Bureau is handling matters concerning the restricted zone, and it will need the support of the Development Bureau and other bureaus in order to promote tourism. Take Shenzhen as an example. On both the eastern and western side of Shenzhen, there are yachts that would like to come to Hong Kong, and in order to do so, they have to go through the Security Bureau. And for the colocation pier in Mears Bay, again, the vessels are ready to come to Hong Kong, but they are concerned about the clearance procedure. So on the Hong Kong side, the government will have to roll out support measures in order for yachts and vessels to come. Next, Mr. Ben Chen. Thank you, Chair. The Development Bureau has been working as a facilitator, and I appreciate this work culture. I also see that the Development Bureau has been rolling out various initiatives to streamline the procedures, and I appreciate this. I have 3 questions. First, on the extension of fixed-term tenancy. This is a way out for brownfield site operators. However, for other tenants that are currently operating on government land, can they benefit from this new measure as well? They have, for example, been operating on government land under short-term tenancies for a while. They would like to invest in their operation further. So, will this measure be extended to operators that are currently working on government land? Second, it is believed that we will see a drop in terms of the number of public works in Hong Kong. If that's the case, there will be an impact on the construction or the planning sector. I actually have talked to the Development Bureau about this. We are concerned about job opportunities for fresh graduates. I hope that during the interim or transitional period, the government can roll out measures to help the sector weather the difficulties. Thirdly, I understand that the government is facing financial pressure, but having an appropriate number of public works would help boost the economy. Without putting pressure on the public coffers, can the government adopt, for example, the BOT model for reclamation works? You could invite people to invest in the projects, and then the project could be handed over to the government for management. This can help the government save up money, and at the same time it can encourage investments in the business sector. Will the government consider this? I'm afraid that I'll have to extend this session by another 10 minutes. Any objections? All right. Secretary, in terms of the new tenancy arrangement, that is, we're going to allow business operators to renew the tenancies for 2 times. And this is not only limited to brownfield site operators. For some land, we can only use it for temporary purpose for 2 years, then we will grant a short-term tenancy. However, for other lands, they can be used for long-term purposes such as logistics purposes, or they could be used as shipyards. In the past, we only have one option for the operators, that is, they either get the short-term tenancy or they have to apply for lease modification. So for lands that could be used in the long run, we adopt a flexible approach. That is, we allow operators to renew the tenancies. As for existing short-term tenancies, can we allow operators to follow the same model? Well, we are looking into this. I believe that we will be able to announce the details in the coming few months. Now, as to whether we can adopt the BOT model more frequently, we definitely will have to do so, especially when we are tight in budget. For example, there is a plot of land in Chengyi that is reserved for a multi-story industrial building. We're currently launching the tender exercise, and we are exactly using the BOT model for this site. Next, Ms. Julia Lau. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to talk about building maintenance. Many private buildings have to carry out maintenance buildings, not only public housing estates. Will the administration consider again launching a pilot scheme. I understand that every year there are large-scale maintenance projects, and every year the government deals with about 600 cases. Even if we make use of the resources of the URA, we can at most handle 1,200 cases. Since private buildings have to take forward maintenance projects as well, I think it is appropriate to have a separate party to deal with these cases. Well, Ms. Lau, please try to use one language only, either Chinese or English. Well, what I want to say is that for minor works, a lot of third-party submission documents have to be submitted. They follow the Class 2 minor works mechanism as well as the Class 1 mechanism. If the owner does not engage a separate consultant themselves, then there won't be third-party supervision. This is because the principal contractor will engage their own consultant. We are talking about a huge amount of paperwork, so I think we need to come up with a dedicated mechanism for this. Secretary, on setting up a dedicated building maintenance authority, I remember that I mentioned in the recent motion debate that we have to think about what role this new authority will play. If this authority is set up simply because owners lack the knowledge about tendering exercises or supervision, then we could actually make use of the existing smart tender platform. We are going to roll out an enhanced version of the smart tender scheme, and the URA is going to allocate more resources for this. We have to make good use of the existing tools. If we are to step up regulation, well, that's the responsibility of the housing department. We have to think about how the housing department or the buildings department can better play this role instead of setting up a new statutory body to strengthen regulation. I think what we have to do now is to, as soon as possible, improve the smart tender system. Members, this is the end of this session. Any further business? If not, we will conclude this session. And in the interest of time, we will kickstart the next session now because we have already overrun. I'll now invite the government officials to join us.